Hello everyone, it's time for a Thursday double video edition of studying for the journalism final. So, that being the case, we're gonna enjoy ourselves doing that again. My partner Will Mack will be back here in just a couple of seconds. In the meantime, let's just do a quick check-in and let's see, we're doing okay today? It's a great day. Supposed to just take it a little easy today. You can see I'm wearing a red shirt. And Will, do you remember where we left off yesterday?
Yeah, you ready?
So we're just about ready to get the show on the road. And we've hit 1 minute in the video. 1 minute and 4 seconds. So, that's been the case. Let's hand our handy duty thing over now to my trusty partner, Will Mack. You ready?
Soft leads. Coaching trips. Try writing many different leads instead of struggling to find the perfect one. Make sure that your lead is related to your focus and can be backed up in your story. And do not strain to create a lead from your head. Pull from the story, not from your head, for inspiration. Soft leads can be fun to write and fun to read. They can also be painful. If you don't get to the point quickly, they can be tedious. They can be as effective in broadcast writing as in print. Although soft leads are also called delayed leads, the leads is still first. Only the nut graft is delayed. It is preferable to place the nut graft high in the story by the third to fifth paragraph. There are many types of soft leads. They can be used on both news and feature stories. Most of them follow a simple concept, specific to general. Use specific example to begin to illustrate the main point of the story. People like to read about other people. As a result, many soft leads start with something about a person who is one of many people sharing the same problem. The idea behind these soft leads, called anecdotal leads, is that readers can relate better to one person's problem than to a general statement of a problem. Other common types of soft leads are descriptive and narrative. Descriptive leads describe a person or a scene. Narrative leads are storytelling leads that recount the event in a dramatic way to put the reader on the scene as the action occurs. And then there are leads that are just clever or catchy. It's not what you call soft leads that matter, it's how you write them. The important point is to tell a good story. When writers struggle with soft leads, it is often because they think they must create something clever. All too often, the result is a cliche. It's best to look at your notes and build a lead based on something interesting in the story. The sections that follow show a variety of ways to structure a soft lead. The basic techniques are descriptive, anecdotal, and narrative. Descriptive leads. This type of lead describes a person, place, or event. It is like the descriptive focus on a person lead. But it doesn't have to focus on a person who is one of many. It can be used for news or feature stories. In this example, the story focuses on the man who is causing the problem. Skipak farmer John W. Hassan stood ankle deep in mud, pumping milk into a wooden trough as his pigs, squealing and grunting, snouts quivering, climbed over each other to get to their feed. Hassan inhaled deeply. "Does that smell sour to you?" "That's what they call noxious fumes," he said with a sniff towards his new neighbors, Ironbridge Estates, a subdivision of two-story colonial houses costing $200,000 plus. Ironbridge's developers say Hassan's farm smells, and his 250 pigs squeal too much. So they have filed suit in Montgomery County to force him to clean up his act. The case is scheduled to be heard May 8th. Anecdotal leads. This type of lead starts with a story about a person or an event. In a sense, all soft leads are anecdotal because they are storytelling approaches. Many combine descriptive and anecdotal techniques. This lead is an anecdote. The story behind a woman's court case. Late one spring night, after drinks at a bar and a bit of protest, Elaine Hollis agreed to her boyfriend's desire to capture their passion on videotape. Inside Edward Bayless's apartment, the video camera rolled at the foot of his bed. He promised to erase the tape. 7 years later, Hollis, who has a son with Bayless, was in Delaware County Court accusing him of contriving to bring her into disrepute by exhibiting the tape. Bayless, president of the Philadelphia Suburban Electrical Service in Upper Darby, admitted showing the tape to one of his friends. Hollis contended he showed and distributed the tape in Delaware County and surrounding areas, as well as gave copies of it to bar owners in Darby who played it for customers. Last week, after 3 years of litigation, a county judge upheld an October 15th Common Pleas Court order that mandated Bayless to pay Hollis $125,000 to settle her lawsuit. This example contains another anecdotal lead that tells a story but incorporates news in the first sentence. It is a good example of using a storytelling approach to update news about a minor earthquake that occurred the previous day. If the earthquake had been greater and caused death or injuries as it did in the 1964 earthquake in Alaska, a summary lead would have been more appropriate. Example: when the shockwave from a magnitude 4.7 earthquake rolled through Anchorage Wednesday morning, dentist Kendall Skinner had just inserted a 3-inch needle into the mouth of a patient and begun injection. It was jarring, Skinner said. It's such a sharp object in the back of somebody's mouth. And with somewhat unsteady hands, Skinner finished the injection as fast and safely as he could, then pulled out. His patient, 20-something woman who needed a filling, told him she was fine. The numbing started before the shaking, so she didn't feel a thing. People all over Anchorage and the Matanuska-Susitna Valley were shaken but not stirred from their regular workday routine Wednesday when a quake struck beneath the Point McKenzie area a few miles north of downtown, then triggered an afternoon minor aftershocks. This lead uses both anecdotal and descriptive techniques. Example: Don Clark's cat walked carefully across the lawn, then stopped suddenly looking bewildered. The cat sniffed tentatively, then bolted off the grass and spent the next few minutes licking his paws, trying to clean the paint flecks from them. The lawn had recently been mowed and was green as a billiard table because it had just been painted with vegetable dye. It's nutcraft. Santa Barbara residents have devised innovative ways to keep their yards green since the city, faced with expected water shortfall of nearly 50% for the year, declared a drought emergency in late February and banned lawn watering, extension of nutcraft. Clark's cat had just experienced one. Several landscape companies now offering painting, and local nurseries are stocking their shelves with green paint and pump sprayers. Narrative leads. In an anecdotal lead, a narrative lead tells a story with enough dramatic action so readers can feel as if they were witnessing the event. Narrative writing uses all the techniques of fiction, including dialogue, scene setting, and foreshadowing, giving the readers clues to what will happen. It takes longer to set up the nutcraft for this kind of lead, but the story is dramatic enough, the narrative approach may work. Police officer Juan Cabrera felt the barrel of the gun pressed against his head. "I'm going to kill you," a voice said from behind. "I didn't see who it was. I didn't know what was happening," Cabrera said. "I just thought someone was going to kill me." Cabrera instinctively knocked the gun away, wrestled the suspect to the ground, and handcuffed him. The suspect was a 12-year-old boy. The gun was a toy. It looked like a .38 caliber short-barrel revolver, said Cabrera, a 5-year veteran of the force. It was a cap gun. The incident was no joke for the boy. He was arrested on charges of battering a law enforcement officer. Other soft leads. Soft leads can be written in many other ways. The following techniques are variations on the 3 main types of soft leads, combining features of descriptive, anecdotal, and narrative leads. Focus on the person leads. You can focus on the person in 2 ways: use an anecdotal approach, telling a little story about the person, or use a descriptive approach that describes a person or shows a person in action. This type of lead can be used in profile stories about the person or in news stories about issues where the person is one of many affected by the point of your story. This example uses a descriptive approach. Nita walked slowly down the narrow hallway, deftly guiding her tottering 11-month-old son around abandoned baby walkers, strollers, and toys. Inside her tiny room, the 17-year-old mother pointed to photographs of her son's father and some of her friends. Cards congratulating her on her recent high school graduation were nearby. the baby's crib was crammed in an area near the door. Neither one of 85 residents at Florence Crittenden Services in Fullerton is one of a growing number of teenagers having babies in Orange County. A figure that has increased 36% in 5 years. Nutgraf points out that this person is one of many. The focus on a person lead is an effective technique for broadcast news as well, especially when the person or people used in the lead exemplify a problem shared by many other people in your community. Example, Jody and Jose Westbrook spent the morning cleaning up their furniture in the front yard. Blue River had overflowed its banks and forced its way into their Independence home. Nutgraf points out that these people are like many others. Example, more than 25 families share their predicament. Late this afternoon, all of these families were awaiting word about their flood insurance claims. Contrast leads. This type of lead can be used to set up stories about conflicts or unusual circumstances. The two most common ways to write contrast leads emphasize circumstances and time. But guess what contrast? Contrast leads that revolve around circumstances can be used to explain something unusual. Example, William Pierce, known to his patients as Dr. William J. Rick, was charming and slick, said his former associates and police detectives. He came to town with medical degrees, numerous national board certificates, and a myriad of other qualifications. Nutgraf. But the real Dr. Rick died in 1986, police said, and now William John Pierce, 57, is in jail on charges of impersonating a doctor. Then and now contrast. Time contrast. Then and now are useful ways to show change. This type of lead also can be used when the background is interesting or important and is relevant to the focus. Example, it was March 1964 when Lewis Hackey Wilson, the 7-year-old son of St. Petersburg firefighter, disappeared after stopping to pick up flowers on his way home from school. His case received national attention a month later when the sheriff's posse on horseback flushing out rattlesnakes ahead of the line of 80 searchers found the child's bones in the fields south of Venice. Nutgraf. Now the case may be revived. Prosecutors in Sarasota County have realized that Joseph Francis Ryan, a convicted child kidnapper indicted for Hackey's murder in 1965, has never been brought to trial. Teaser leads. These leads use the elements of surprise to tease the reader into the story. The Nutgraf may also be a contrast, but the first sentence set up as a tease into something unusual. Broadcast news uses the concept of teasers before commercials to convince the audience to stay tuned after the break, but teasers are also effective in leads on broadcast stories. This is no ordinary public library. For one thing, there are only 4 books on the shelves. For another, you won't find any of these works or the many that are expected to join them soon at other libraries or bookstores. You probably never will. Nutgraf. That's because the Broaddigan Library, which opened here last weekend, has a unique policy. It only accepts books that have never been published. Mystery leads. Like teasers, these leads promise the reader a surprise or a treat for reading on. They set up the story like a mystery novel. They're fun to write and fun to read, but they won't work unless the subject matter lends itself to this approach. They are effective for print and broadcast writing. One technique for writing mystery leads is to start with a vague pronoun, it or they, and to delay naming the noun to which the pronoun refers. It began at midnight. Later you specify what it was. Here's an example of a mystery lead. They know who you are, what you eat, how you procreate, and where to find you. Do you like ice cream? The U.S. government has used that information to track down draft-dodging 18-year-olds who signed up for ice cream parlor birthday clubs. Been turned down for a MasterCard or Visa. List brokerage and management, a New York list marketer. They have your name. It rents a list of 1.6 million people rejected for bank cards obtained, the company says, from the very banks that just turned you down. Nutgraf. Computer companies are hooking up with credit bureaus and massive data banks to allow people with only a desktop computer to single you out by income, age, neighborhood, car model, or waist size. The next lead uses not only the mystery approach, but also the format of the novel as part of the lead. case has all the elements of 1950s film noir mystery. Characters, the scheming husband, the trusting wife, the other woman. The story, the husband, Ray Valois, buys a lottery ticket, scratches it, and finds 3 spin symbols. That makes him eligible to win up to $2 million in California Big Spin Lottery. But he does not want to tell his wife, Monica, according to the statement of San Luis Obispo County's Superior Court records. So he gives the ticket to another woman, waitress Stephanie Martin. She agrees to cash in the ticket according to the court records and secretly give him half. The inevitable plot twist: Valois and Martin turn on each other. He claims he owns the ticket. She claims that she owns the ticket. The conclusion: Martin spins and wins $100,000, but the wife finds out and sues both of them for fraud. Now neither Martin nor Valois has $100,000. His wife's attorney, Gary Dunlap, obtained a temporary restraining order restricting lottery officials from awarding the winnings until the court hearings today. Build on a quote lead. If you have a great quote, build your lead around the quote that will back up your first sentence. But be careful not to repeat too much of the quote in your head, in your lead. That's boring and repetitious. Building on a quote is an easy and effective way to find a lead, provided that the quote is related to the focus of the story. This technique works equally well for hard news leads. For broadcast news, however, you would need to read a quote. Instead, you might start with a video of a person speaking, called a sound on tape. Example: Belinda Easterbrook knows exactly how long it took for a tornado to blast apart her comfortable home while she and her husband huddled in the basement. It lasted 5 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers, but you have to say them quickly, she said yesterday. While she was praying, the concrete basement rumbled and shook. When she and her husband Brian came upstairs, they were hardly prepared for the scope of destruction that had swept through the small town about 5 miles east of Wichita. The next example is the kind of build-on quote lead to avoid. The backup quote says the same thing as the lead, and it's right after the lead, so it's boring. Broadcast writing is called parroting. When the reporter introduces the soundbite that repeats what the source says on tape, it should be avoided as well. For example, a commitment to high-tech learning, such as small classes taught by professors, has made Fort Hays State University the fastest-growing university in the state board of Regents system. FHSU's president said today. FHSU had the largest spring semester enrollment, increasing among the 6 Regent universities, 2.4% compared with the previous spring. We've been the fastest growing of the Regents institutions over the last 5 years, FHSU President Edward Hammond said. List leads. If you have a few brief examples to lead into your focus, you may list them in parallel sentences. Making sure that your sentences have the same construction, such as subject, verb, object, order. 3 seems to be the magic number. More than 3 can be awkward and tedious. Boston College, for example, Boston College has an assistant dean for alcohol and drug education. Rutgers University set aside dorm rooms for recovering student alcoholics. University of Nevada bars students from leaving school sport events to make alcohol runs. Nutcraft. Increasingly, colleges are confronting problem drinking by providing education and rehabilitation programs. Alternatives to the campus bar scene and stricter regulations of on-campus parties. Question leads. These can be effective if the reader is interested in finding the answer to the question you posed. If not, you could lose the reader. One way to test a question lead is to determine if the answer would be yes or no. Those are dangerous ones. A question that raises a more thoughtful, more interesting answer is preferable. What are the odds of finding your true love by placing an ad with the telephone dating service? About 1 in 40, according to Terry Elbart. On April 13th, Elbart is planning to marry Scott Anderson, who was the last of 40 guys she agreed to meet after placing a voicemail ad with the 1976 date service she saw advertising TV. The phone service works in much the same way published personal ads do. The example is a little dangerous. What if you don't want to buy cigarettes at all? Will you read on? Example: want to buy cigarettes while at the gas station or while sipping a cocktail at your favorite bar? Not in Lower Merion. township officials have their way. Nutcraft. Officials there are concerned about the availability of cigarettes to minors have proposed a municipal law prohibiting cigarette vending machines in the township. The law would be the first of its kind in Pennsylvania.
Right, stop there. We're gonna cut this video into two, and we'll see you in a little bit. Bye.